Following her training in music, voice, Louise discovered how surprising the effects of group singing were on the elderly living in caregiving facilities, while so little recognition was given to these group singing programs. Louise devoted her master's degree to verifying and measuring the effects of group singing with older adults, followed by a PhD, which looked at the effects of group singing and compared them to traditional rehabilitation therapy in individuals with COPD. Her upcoming post-COVID study will be analyzing the group singing program by comparing online and in-person activities. Thanks for being here, Louise.
Right, well, thank you for including me in. I'm honored to be with you today. Yes, our next study, that Singwell is accepted, is about this hybrid group. So no wonder I was asking so many questions to Jane earlier, as we've done the in-person only before, comparing the pulmonary rehabilitation to the group singing for COPD. So we had similar groups, and we checked with a similar schedule and such. But this time we would just use the hybrid group for the singing. This is the team. So we are quite lucky to have people from all kinds of environments, including speech therapy. That's new. We didn't have it before, so we are very lucky. We're very pleased. Jane and her knowledge and experience is wonderful. And other people like our pulmonologist. So he's the key to our success in the past in recruiting people who were having COPD at a very high level. The next one. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong thing. Yes, it went too fast. Okay. I believe I'm doing it. You can see the slides? Okay. Yeah?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So why the pulmonary disease? Well, it's a disease that doesn't show much when people have it. It's not as apparent as Parkinson's, for instance. It may take a while before anybody will notice that a person is ill. But yeah, it is the first cause to go to hospital, as when you're actually lacking oxygen and you're choking. It's kind of an emergency, and it's very hard to live with. It affects mostly seniors. So in the present time of an aging population worldwide, it is worth considering to seek to those people with the pulmonary diseases. What is existing now, apart from medication, is the pulmonary rehabilitation therapy program, which is doing very well. It's the best known therapy, but hardly any people can access it in most parts of Canada. So this is lacking. Also, the effects are limited and they do not last so long. So once the program, usually 10 or 12 weeks, ours is 12. When it ends, well, it doesn't take long before the effects on the muscle and walking distance and all kinds of effects that have been happening, they just melting away. So we're looking for alternatives. And with Stephen Clift, who was there earlier today, the team in Britain and people across the world did notice that singing was improving lung capacity. People didn't notice it. And they measured some increasing the lung function, similar effects to PR for Kasgard, who was in Denmark, that Stephen Clift was talking about earlier today. And our study measured that either the pulmonary rehab or the singing had similar effects on the lung, not much. We didn't have an increase. The effects were quite similar in all the measures, except that for the singing, when we measured 3 months later for the maintenance, the singing group was always doing better. So we cannot say that it's because of the singing, but it did show pretty well because all the measures did show in a similar way. So that was that. So this is about the literature we're talking about with Mette Kasgard and Clift. So it was encouraging to go in that direction. What we intend to do really is evaluate the feasibility of the hybrid group singing program. And it might be important to notice that in Quebec, as I know, perhaps I don't know it all, but for now, there is no such thing as a singing group for COPD. For people with lung disease, none at all. So when we did the study, it was the first that was known, and we was lucky enough to do a local one in a community center that just ended up last week for 8 weeks as a trial. And the people attended well, and we intend to continue with the research. Perhaps the same people may come back. So we will evaluate the effects as we did in the previous study. Attendance, satisfaction, facilitators, and barriers. We'll use the interview for most of those topics. And then there'll be measures about the lung health, the functional capacity with the 6-minute walk test, for instance, and cognition, as cognition differences have been noticed among that population before, and quality of life and communication and social inclusion. This is the main diagram of what's going on. The 2 hybrid groups, one that will be just singing, the other one singing and the maintenance and pulmonary rehabilitation. The singing group in here in Sherbrooke, where I'm talking from right now, in Quebec, in person, most of the time, people will use the Zoom when they can't come up, when perhaps they're coughing or something, and they're not allowed to come if they show any sign of anything that could cause trouble for the others, that could be dangerous for their health. And the online one, it will be taking place in Montreal for people who are with the Association Pulmonaire du Québec, the Lung Association. That's the Quebec Lung Association, where they already doing PR maintenance program. They've been doing it for quite some time, and during the COVID, for instance, they carried on with it. So they will be carrying on with their maintenance program, and some of them will choose to do singing with us once a week online. So that's the diagram here. You see the 12 weeks. We'll have the baseline measurements, then the measurements after the intervention, and then 3 months later. So we can evaluate the maintenance of the effects. In the round the circles, the turquoise circles, those will be the micro time scale tests of the Singwell tests that we didn't use before. That will be done during the intervention. Our concepts, the basic concepts. The first one we inherited from the British group with Cliff and Morrison, who did measure the increase in the lung capacity. This is a sense of coherence of Antonovsky that really starts thinking in the way of optimizing one's health. We're not trying to cure anything in any way. These are chronic diseases. They will not be cured. The best we can do is make one feel better and optimize what's there. And this is what it tends to do with the these three things: the comprehensivity, the manageability, and the meaningfulness. And actually, this is the measure we used in our last research that came up the most encouraging for the group singing in comparison with the other group. Although it was not significant statistically, which it couldn't be in any way in 3 months, it went on increasing all the way through for the group singing, as it went exactly the opposite for the other group. For the pulmonary rehabilitation, indicating this measure indicates really that the coping, the higher the score, the more the mental health is usually better. It is effective in that way, so it's encouraging. The other one, creative aging, is about Jean Cohen that Professor Cliff was also mentioning this morning, who tends to encourage creativity as a powerful tool for the second half of life. So I go for it 100%. I'm totally concerned with this one. And I really like the values that it comes up with the life's choices to be reevaluated, and the liberation that comes with aging when you don't have the same load on your shoulders and you have more spare time. So this is one of the concepts that is very useful for training the people who will be working with the seniors. So to take them in a different option as they're just aging and losing out. So this is encouraging to me. Our population that we intend to recruit to 24 participants with 2 groups of 12. And the criteria is the usual ones with the age group is starting with our community centers criteria, 50 years. And the rest is mostly for security. You want people to be not too ill so that they're not endangering themselves. The cognitive impairment, we have no choice with the research at certain levels will be checked. And also they have to be hearing enough so that they can hear the sound and they can sing. We will be checking on that. And of course the French, because everything will be taking place in French. So they need to understand, speak and read French. Our variables are the 2 groups, the intervention and the control. The common to both in the center is we'll be careful about this, that it is as similar as possible. Both of them are taking place in community centers. They have warm-ups. They have some COPD management education, and carers will be admitted. Well, less with the pulmonary rehab, and there'll be similar self-administered tests. But with the choir, of course, there's some singing. The room is not the gymnasium, and they'll be learning songs rather than techniques for daily living. And they're needing a lot less personnel. As sometimes there'll be just a facilitator altogether. But sometimes there's also an accompanist, and we intend to have an occasional, not occasional, but an assistant trainee most of the time for the next study. And of course, the concert, usually people ask for the concert if the 12 weeks have been given them enough boost so that they can be on a stage and enjoy themselves. It did happen in the past every time. It's about in that line that the measures will be taking place, then the analysis, the results, and it is a mixed design study. So we really are privileged to count on the interview to balance similar effects that will be measured quantitatively. We check which ones is one thing and the other, and then we can balance it and check out. So this is very useful. Of course, it is limited. We have limitations. The partners, for instance, we didn't work with those partners before. They had 2 different backgrounds. One is a community center for leisure activities of all kinds. The other one is specifically for people with the lung diseases. So there will be cultural bias, most likely. We'll take that into account. And the hybrid method, well, it is a new experiment, so we will probably baffle a little and we'll do some mistakes. So we'll try and do our best. And to conclude, we find that this project not only brings us together and brings together those people again who like to sing, but we will be functioning with the national partner, the association, the Lung Association, that we really aimed at because they do correspond to our best hope to implement these choirs in the future, as it was done in Great Britain with the British Lung Foundation. And also, well, it is a pleasure and an honor to be here today with you and to be welcomed with these new colleagues of Canada. Thank you for that. We found from the past study that there were certain things that we really aimed at not forgetting for this time. And we're quite pleased to say that most of them are met in this study, like the implication of our medical team from the start, where we still have our famous doctor who's going with us, and Nicole, who's with us today, who does teach the pulmonary rehabilitation and who actually is the initiator of the studies in the first place, as she is also a chorister, and she enjoyed the similarities, and she noticed the similarities between the singing warm-ups and the ones in the pulmonary rehab being similar. Also to experiment with a complement to pulmonary rehab. Last time we really compared 2 different groups. Now we will be comparing singing with a group that does singing plus the pulmonary rehab maintenance. So this is inspiring to us. I was curious to check on that as it worked well in New Zealand. And then evaluate, of course, the costs and options that would be helpful to implement. And I believe that's what's happening right now. So we're quite pleased for that. Plus, with the COVID, when everything stopped, fortunately, we just finished our quiz and we had gathered our data. But with the COVID and the pre-existing limitations, a lot of people do live too far to come to those rehearsals. And also the weather is so bad that sometimes weather, even if they stay close, they can't go out the house at all. So this hybrid was a plan we wish to do. So with the Singwell Research in 2023, this is what's happening. So we're very happy about that. Don't know if I have a few seconds left. You could hear us. Do I have a few seconds left? We had that at the last, it was a concert to end the intervention in 2018. And I'm not directing the people as much as directing across where the residents are coming, because the place, the research center is also located with a long-term care facility where we had our assistance. So this is quite complete. The last slide is the one that I didn't translate, because that word also made something that I will use in this study in English. Have mercy. We do hope that we will manage to gather all that data and go through the study with, and thank you again to the Singwell Group for this. Thank you.
Louise, unfortunately, we don't have time for questions, but would it be all right if we share your email address with participants if they have any questions about your presentation today?
Yes, of course. I'll be glad to take any email. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you
Thanks
very
so
much
much,
again.
Thank you.
Louise.